This video is about Joshua Eichelberger, Tabitha Michelle Cook, and Graham, whatever his name really is. He goes by Michael Ignatius on the internet. When I went over there, I did not know who Joshua Eichelberger was. He's been with Tabby for 10 years. He's an abusive asshole. Tabby's no longer with him, thank goodness. See, despite the fact that I am extremely pissed off at this woman for lying out her ass repeatedly to me, and for protecting Graham for lying to me repeatedly, and also for wasting my resources through those lies, for stealing all of my things through those lies, because whether they intended to steal my things or not, they ended up with all of my stuff. And then they want to treat me like shit because they're storing my stuff. Well, with all due respect, first of all, I paid you for that. Second of all, I paid you rent. Third of all, I helped you clean the house. Now, Joshua Eichelberger was an extremely loud asshole. Very abusive, just like Shannon Alvarado. The difference is Shannon Alvarado is not physically abusive. Joshua Eichelberger is. He assaulted Tabby's daughter, Sydney, and they all made excuses. This is the guy who was calling a 3-year-old a fucking cunt. 2 3-year-olds, matter of fact, for playing. I spent a lot of money on his booze, hoping that he would help. Now, the reason that I moved my stuff there, and the reason that I moved in there, is because of Graham and Tabby. Why? Why would I move my stuff there and invest what little money I had into paying for a place where I was being abused? Well, I wasn't being abused. Nobody at that household ever abused me. They didn't. They didn't yell at me or scream at me or treat me like shit. They just lied. Now, Joshua Eichelberger, he was the only abusive person that I saw there. Tabby, she wasn't abusive. The girls were abusive to each other, sure, but it was 2 of them in specific. The rest of them, well, when they had an issue, it was justified. Her oldest, her name is Candace. Candace is good to me. She's the one that bought me the ticket to go to Shannon Alvarado's. Why did she buy me that ticket? Well, first of all, it was my money. But second of all, I had to leave Colorado because it was obvious I was never going to get an honest day in court. And I didn't have the means to jump through all the hoops that the courts expected of me after the railroading that I got because I was falsely accused. Falsely accused of a lot of things. I admitted to the shit that I did wrong. I had to do that shit to try to force someone to take a look. The mentally disabled in this country, disabled, not ill, we get treated like shit. There are supposed to be rights to protect us because we are vulnerable. But then they say ill instead of disabled. And it makes it all right for them to, it makes it justified for them to exploit those disabilities to try to frame innocent people. It makes it okay for them to refuse to take a report. See, when I was in Nebraska, and I was trying to take those officers down, I was going after the officers in specific who had done wrong. Namely, Jordan Anderson, who is no longer an officer there because of his heroin use. He got pricked by a needle, and somehow that tiny pinprick was enough for him to have quite a decent amount of heroin in his system. More than you would get from a pinprick. So these officers are hiding his wrongdoing. Now, I went down there and tried to do it professionally. I went down there to try to do that paperwork. I went down there and collected that paperwork. Now, I didn't get to turn it in the way that I needed to. I didn't get someone to sit down with me like people had claimed that they would. And that's the thing, is that these people didn't care. Laura Nelson cared, just not enough to come forward. Now, she claimed that she would, but the police never came and talked to her. They never came and talked to her. They went to Molly Smith. And Molly Smith didn't know shit. She was willing to help me just because she knew me. Just because she knew my quality of character. When somebody is overwhelmed, all these things that you guys want to treat me like shit for doing, you didn't go after any of the people who did those things to me first. The fact is, the Bollingers slandered my name, and I have gone through 3 years of abuse over it. Over slander that I was never allowed to defend myself against. Meanwhile, I have to take people's abuse and not say anything. Just take it and take it and take it and take it. Because if I say anything, I'm the bad guy. No, Shannon, I'm not the bad guy for exposing what you and Rick did nightly. Or the fact that that shut me down. Or the fact that you guys doing that is the reason that you didn't keep your word. You guys doing that is the reason that I wasn't able to keep mine. Because after you're done with that, you want to come whine to me. And what did I tell you, Shannon? Every time I told you, make a decision tomorrow when you're sober. You sure as fuck didn't like that, did you? And I said that to you nightly. Why? Because you bitched about Rick nightly. What a terrible person he is. How he's just using you. Bitch, you're just using your dad. You're using those 2 Hispanic women who are taking care of your dad. That's a free fucking paycheck for you. You get paid because your dad is disabled. These women take care of your dad, and you're the one who's getting paid. And then you take their Christmas bonus. How fucked up is that? No, you don't get to talk to me about morality. Now, the things that the law were supposed to do, legally, they did not. They went out of their way in multiple jurisdictions and multiple states to cover up the wrongdoing of other officers as well as themselves. In multiple states, the officers that I was trying to turn in were the ones who were given that case. Meanwhile, I am too afraid to go in and talk to the police because of the way that I am treated, because of the term mentally ill. Rayanne was going to help me when I got there. Did she help me? No, that was the 3rd time that she had fucking lied out her ass. I'm supposed to understand why she didn't keep her word. I'm supposed to understand. No, it is not understandable. First of all, you should have checked with your husband before giving your word. Second of all, when your husband was being abusive, that's not my fault. That's not my decision. When you went into the room and your son was screaming that you fucking smacked him, you know what? I believe you smacked him now. I wholeheartedly believe that you smacked your son. And yeah, he was getting a fucking attitude. Maybe you were right in what you did. Maybe it was justified, according to the law. But the fact is, I wasn't in the room to see it. And he was being disrespectful. I can agree with that. But when you went after those girls and you smacked those girls, you were doing so because you missed your kids. Danny didn't deserve that, neither did Alyssa. And then you prevent Alyssa and Danny from communicating with their mother. I would have loved to have Amy's phone number so I could call her up and let her know what you were doing. When you started smacking those kids, like, I literally can't go to the police. I will get punished if I go to the police. So what am I supposed to do? Just allow those girls to get smacked around? Now, don't get me wrong, those girls were not perfect. They did a lot of wrong shit, like claiming that they weren't eating. Bullshit. They just didn't want to eat anything but sugar. And then they want to play victim. They wanted to play victim when Rihanna set down some ground rules. They wanted to play victim when I set down ground rules. I set down Rihanna's ground rules. And they are good rules. We're in an RV park where people are constantly in and out. You could get stolen and dragged off to who knows where, and we would never fucking find you. Yes, you do need to let us know where you're going. No, you cannot just walk off whenever you want. They were still doing that the day that I left there. They were still doing that. Now, those of you parents who have another parent who the kids go and ask, you guys understand about undermining authority. Or those of you who are step-parents especially understand this. It's not your kid, so you can't do anything about it. If that kid is unruly, you're not allowed to set down the ground rules. Now, maybe your wife is understanding. Maybe your wife understands that those kids aren't perfect. Or your husband, whoever. And maybe you are allowed to set down some boundaries. I'm not allowed to set boundaries. I'm not allowed. I have to just take the abuse. My entire life I have taken the abuse. And when you try to turn in these authority figures, of course they're going to do everything in their power to prevent you from doing so. The biggest problem is the blue line of bullshit, though. Every single officer that I told about what these officers were doing, well, when they wrote their reports, they omitted that information, every one of them. Now, that video on that computer that was stolen in Wyoming, I got some folks from the media who would finally like to listen to my side of the story, but I don't have it to show because it was illegally stolen from me by those officers. By those officers in Wyoming. And I don't even know the name of those officers. But I recorded that on that computer. So it is on that computer that those officers stole from me and tried to send to Colorado to the very officers in Colorado that I was trying to make a report about. To the very officers in Colorado who had harmed me for my disabilities, who took advantage of my disabilities as their excuse to harm me. People say, I'm in your corner, I'm on your side. No, the fuck you weren't. Pretty words on Facebook is not help. Thinking that I just need somebody to vent to. No, I am trying to tell these things to someone who actually cares, who actually matters. And if you're not going to step forward, you don't matter. A lot of people got involved in this that should have never been involved. I should have never had to deal with Karamia, or Kara Johnson, or Layla Johnson, a.k.a. Layla Dunan, or Dan Fabert, or Shannon Alvarado. None of these people should have been involved. The cops should have been involved. When I told Natalie, hey, give the fucking cops my goddamn number. There's a reason for that. It's because by that point, the police had treated me like shit for trying to turn it in repeatedly in Colorado and in Nebraska. Now, Shannon wants to pretend I'm a shitty person for exposing how it was at her house. No, there's a reason I couldn't function. I was overwhelmed. I was overwhelmed with the constant fucking abuse. And when you're getting drunk and treating your boyfriend like shit every fucking night and accusing him of being a cheater every fucking night, and then you're fine and dandy during the day when you're sober, yeah, there's a major fucking issue there. I'm mad at Peaches for not keeping her word. Now, admittedly, she said that she tried. She claimed that she did a lot of things that I didn't get to see because I wasn't there for it. Now, there was a lot of shit that I actually did, that she pretends I didn't try because she wasn't there to see it. Well, maybe you should have tried taking a look. Maybe you should have taken the time to do what you said you would. But you didn't keep your word, and the longer you procrastinated, the more abuse I had to endure. You goddamn right I'm going to use my First Amendment right to speak out about you sons of bitches.